Welcome everyone to our city council meeting this evening. Madam Clerk, could you please read the roll?
Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein? Here. Mr. Foyce?
Here.
Mr. Greider?
Here.
Mrs. Jewin? Mrs. Jewin?
Take your phone off mute.
Got it. Here.
All right. There we go. All right. So we have a full council roster, and we have two of our council members that are taking the call from home, and we have 5 in person, I think. 5, yeah. All right, so without further ado, could you please join me in a moment of silence? All right, thank you. The pledge this evening will be led by Ward 1 Council Member, Ms. Margaret Klein.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda as proposed in the minutes of March 9, 2020, regular session as proposed. Second.
That motion has been,
Sorry, we do have one amendment to the agenda. We need to remove Mayor Hart's travel request, so that's item 1B1A under the consent agenda.
As Kelly stated.
Thank you.
duly noted. And just for the clarification, that's because that trip is no longer going to happen. It's in a few weeks. So, all right. So we have that amended agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. We are ready to get started, and we're going to hustle through here today. We're trying to be very conscientious to gatherings of more than 10, 15, or 20 people, which we have today. So we're going to move through this council meeting. But the first up, we have an update on the City of Waterloo's response to the COVID-19, and that is the coronavirus. So we have a couple of people that will be speaking to us, but we also ask that Dr. Nafisa Boignet will make a couple comments about what's taking place on the county level and maybe how we're interacting and multi-city responses too. So Dr. Boignet, would you please join us for a few comments? I didn't send out anything, but just if you can give us an update on what's happening.
Well, good afternoon, Board. Just a quick update for Iowa. We're now.
Could you announce yourself and then give your address for the record for all the people out here and for our record keeping?
Nafisa Boignet, Public Health Director for Blackhawk County. Okay. So just a quick update for Iowa. We are currently at 23 cases. Governor Reynolds just announced an additional case, and that is a second case in Dallas County. So the counties with cases are Carroll, Dallas, Johnson, and Pottawatomie. There have been no cases at this moment in Blackhawk County. And so one of the things that we've recognized at the health department is that there are some national guidelines in terms of mass gatherings that are released. But as of right now, with the health department, because of where we're at in terms of Iowa and our cases, it's still larger than 250 people. But I know that information was just recently released for just mass gatherings of 20 and less. But for Iowa, the Iowa Department of Public Health has not given us this low number. So I do want to provide that clarification. So right now, the Iowa Department of Public Health recommends to cancel gatherings larger than 250 people and to reduce activities, especially for at-risk groups. We're also recommending that travelers returning from COVID-19 affected areas should self-isolate and remain home for 14 days to monitor for symptoms such as fever, cough, and difficulty breathing. And the CDC has the travel advisory of the locations. So these are geographic areas where sustained community transmission has been identified. So I know with people returning for travels, they might have questions. I would tell their direct reports to look at the CDC travel advisory. And those advisories provide the most current information on travel risks, and people should review them when planning to travel internationally, especially. There's an expansion of testing, so healthcare providers can test at any moment. They will most likely screen patients who are calling or who are concerned before providing the test, but the test is now readily available, so which is a good thing. But there's an assumption also out there that you should just be tested for COVID-19, and that's not the case. The providers will screen to see if the individual meets the criteria for that. We are recommending that mildly ill patients or employees to stay at home when they're feeling sick. So I do want the city to encourage that for people just to stay at home when they're, even if they don't have a doctor's note, if they're not feeling good, to stay at home. So the Black Hawk County Health Department, we've been working with the Iowa Department of Public Health and our local partners to continue to implement screening, monitoring, and mitigation guidelines. We push down communications to our local partners and private partners in terms of just what are some of the different strategies organizations have to implement to reduce the community spread. And one of the things that we're really emphasizing is that employers and the general public implements the 3 C's that we call, which are prevention. So staying at home, containment when they're not feeling good, covering your mouth or your sneeze with a tissue, and I'm just blanking out. But yeah, covering, staying at home, and also if you're not feeling good, to contact your provider. And also washing your hands. That's one of the things that are very critical for this spread to reduce. So constant washing your hands. The kids should learn to at least take 20 seconds, and we're providing those communications also to the schools and childcare facilities. Other than that, we will have, the EOC will open tomorrow at noon, and so we are looking at also ways to continue to work with our partners in terms of standardizing communication. People are getting communication from different outlets, and we want to make sure that the information that they're receiving is factual and also relevant to Iowa, because sometimes it's also national news that people are receiving, and that doesn't pertain to us at the moment. So any questions?
Mr. Foyce.
Just a couple. So you said that we have tests readily available. Are those at doctor's offices, or
Yes.
are they at hospitals? And roughly how many do we have in Black Hawk County to be able to test?
So the tests are it's the same test for the flu. So it's readily available. So it's the nasopharyngeal test. And now originally, it was the state hygienic lab that can only do the test, but now reference labs, so any laboratory can really do the test. So it's available. I think what maybe needs to be clear is that the doctors will still screen people to ensure that they meet the criteria. So just an example of that, people can come to the physician and make assumptions of what they have, but the physician will deduce what kind of testing needs to occur.
So what if somebody doesn't have a primary care physician? Are we going, urgent care then?
Yes, so that's one of the things, it's urgent care, but the hospitals are being inundated, so I think they're also, at this moment, trying to implement some of the systems they need to be able to really control for that amount of people calling. But when you don't have a primary care provider, it's urgent care that you should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey. would you
Yes,
like
the question I had was, what about those people that are listening, or what about the people that don't have insurance? How is this paid for? Testing.
So at the moment, I believe the testing is free, but that has to go through the state hygienic lab. So with the providers where people that are being tested and the tests are sending out other places, this has to do with the insurance carriers. So we still need more information on how people are going to be billed.
They don't have insurance.
If they don't have insurance, that's it's the same protocol that they would need to work something out. I think also the hospitals, they have a financial assistant program, but it usually we want, if they don't have insurance, the test is free when it goes through the state hygienic lab. So I don't know what the systems the hospitals have if they don't go through the state hygienic lab. So that's something that we would need to get clarification on. Yeah.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Ambonier.
Yes.
We're rapidly approaching several large events tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day and other things like that. I know that Iowa has not moved to gatherings below 250, but we're hearing national requirements or national guidelines now that we should be moving to 20 or fewer. Is that something that we're looking at? Is that something that we should just be moving towards anyway, even if the Iowa Department of Public Health hasn't issued those guidelines yet?
That's a great question. I think that one of the things to keep in mind, these recommendations are also provided so that organizations can deduce the financial impact, have time to also plan appropriately if there's capacity for the social distancing. And so if those events can be postponed, they should be postponed, right? Because we don't want, what we're trying to avoid is the cluster of people, and that's why we're calling it mass gatherings. And that's the best way to avoid the spread, so.
And then just a second question. Do you know offhand how many ICU rooms or respirators are currently available across Black Hawk County right now?
No, not at this moment.
All right, Mr.
Sorry.
Foyce.
So just a quick question, Doctor. When you're tested, how long, like at the doctor's office or the hospital, what's the turnaround time on that for you to be diagnosed?
It all depends, but I do know that the laboratory systems are working really fast on that. So it really depends on when the carrier has taken those specimens and just the transportation and the results. But I would say that it shouldn't take no more than 48 to 72 hours. But it's just one of those things, it just depends.
And then if it goes to the state hygienic lab, how long will that take? Because I assume that's in Des Moines, correct?
Yes, so that's pretty fast. It's just and the same, it would be within 48 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so just so you know, for the Black Hawk County Health Department at this time, we are not being notified of the tests that are going on. We will just only be notified of positive cases. And so I know that there's a lot of questions. It's now testing is just readily available. Just kind of take it like the flu. But COVID-19 is a reportable disease, so we will be notified of the positive cases.
Mr. Bosley?
Yeah, doctor, I just had a quick question, and you say it's the same test, it's just a nasopharyngeal swab. So when the federal government says that there are no tests available, but yet it's the same swab as we do for the flu, we've had these available. It's just
Yeah.
the labs to do it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, the labs. So originally, there wasn't clearance on the labs to do the testing. So, for example, with Iowa, it was just the state hygienic lab that was doing it, but now any reference lab can do it.
Okay, so it wasn't some testing device they needed.
No, not the test
It was
kits.
just a swab.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think part of this is we're receiving a lot of information in real time.
Yep.
So 24 hours, this happened, and another 24 hours, this happened, and then before you know it, within a week, life has changed.
Yeah.
So much as we know it. But I think one of the things that help, I want to thank you for being there every time we call, and then also coming on the show to give an update so that we can clip that and put that out for people. Because in situations like this, the right information is the best information. And, understanding that we have the Iowa Public Health Department, then we have the CDC.
Yeah.
So the CDC may be putting together broad range
Right.
types of activities that may be inclusive of states that are more greatly impacted.
Yes.
And then we have the Iowa Public Health, in which gives directions to your department.
Yes.
Having that understanding, because someone may ask, why 250, why 50?
Right.
And may not have both of those, that understanding. But we want to thank you for being there and giving us clarity on that as well. And we just had a meeting earlier today to talk about the emergency
Operation.
operations center, and that's opening up tomorrow at noon, and that will provide greater conversation for ourselves, Cedar Falls, the governments, and then like our healthcare facilities as well. So we're thankful for that also. So we'll probably have just like 2 or 3 more minutes left so we can have our staff make some presentations. But if you please stick around for us for about 5 more minutes, that'll be incredible.
Mayor, I have a question for the doctor, please.
Why don't we do this, Alex? After we get done, can you take his question after we get done? So, because I want to make sure I get folks in here talking about facilities. So, Paul, we made some changes with regards to your facilities. You want to give us an update?
Sure. Paul Hudding, Leisure Services Director. This has been rapidly changing, but as it stands right now, we have not closed any facilities. The Cedar Valley Sportsplex and Young Arena are both operating under different rules or different conditions than we were very recently. Both buildings are open, but all activities are canceled for both buildings. What that means is you can still, if you're a member, you can still come to the Sportsplex. You can work out individually. You can walk. You can utilize the cardio equipment. You can do individual exercise activities. At Young Arena, you can walk. We're open for that. The ice is still in, but we've suspended all programming at this time, and the Blackhawks operation is suspended now too. That doesn't necessarily mean canceled, but it's on hold.
And we kind of limited things so we don't create that cluster effect.
Correct.
So we can be consistent with our experts, but very limited services. So thank you, Paul. Nick, you want to give us a quick update on happenings, because those may even change soon.
Nick Rossman, Library Director. We were open today, and we've canceled all of our programs, events, meetings, and stuff like that this week to start. And then as we go on, I'm sure they'll change. But we've had people in the building, kind of normal traffic, but probably no more than 70, 80 people in the building at one time.
Yep, so we're monitoring happenings there as well. And with our Center for Arts, I think our plays, big groups, smaller groups are pretty much not happening right now and mostly postponed with very limited usage, and the youth pavilion is not open as well. And so we're monitoring situations that are happening. We're asking people with City Hall, like the groups that we have in here tonight, I don't know how that's going to shift in a little while, because we want people that have questions to please contact the individual departments, but also make sure you take the necessary precautions at your own houses. Major Leibold, if you wouldn't mind, could you give an update to people on the way that they can contact the police?
Major Leibold, Waterloo Police Department. We actually offer online reporting, so you can go to our website and report things on there that are non-emergency in nature, whether it's a theft of something off your property or something like that. You can essentially fill the report out yourself without ever having to leave your home or having an officer come to your door. We also implemented some stuff where we might ask you to come outside or have you call in instead, just to limit the contact the officers have with the general public, just to help slow down the spread.
Thank you. And I would like Chris or Kelly, one of you want to talk about a question that was posed to our dear council member about how council can communicate to one another during council meetings in the future. So do we have a plan for that? If we want to hold a council meeting or do something?
Chris Youngblood, Director of IT. So we kind of started it today, trying to get this rolled out, but we do have a GoToMeeting subscription that we're able to use to hold online meetings so that we can provide you guys with a call-in number. We're working on getting it tied into the rest of our technology so that it looks appealing when it's aired to on television. Meetings are also aired for the public on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you look up Waterloo Community TV, you can view the council meetings there. So that's more on the public side. But for council members that wish to join from home, we'll be providing call-in numbers and a web link to be able to join that way.
So we will be able to have access. Kelly, you were going to say something?
Yeah, and then as far as the public participation goes, for when we have quite a few council members calling in, if the public isn't wanting to come down to City Hall to attend the council meetings in person, I will have my email address open and available during the city council meeting. So if you want to send a comment, you're welcome to. Also, if you have questions or comments about something that's on the agenda, you're more than welcome to contact my office. Our number is 291-4323. You can submit questions for the agenda ahead of time, and we'll get those distributed around to council members as well.
Right. And so we've been communicating with Waterloo to Cedar Falls and outreach to Evansdale. We've been in communication with our county partners, with other mayors and municipalities across the state. We've also been in communication with healthcare providers and our emergency management systems that we have here locally in the sheriff's office. So we've been trying to do our due diligence to stay on top of this changing situation as much as possible. So we thank you for your patience, but we are at the point where we're kind of discouraging people. If you can't take care of business without being here, then we ask that you not come back and forth to City Hall, but do it as least amount as you can at this particular point. We're also working, there's several cities around the state that has put in emergency proclamations, and we've done it before with regards to floods or natural disasters, but this is a public health situation potentially in our local community. So we will be bringing forth information to council, which gives us the ability as mayor to be able to make some decisions, whether it's dispatching some type of service somewhere, if we need to buy a particular, let's just say, mask or whatever it is, gives some flexibility for us to be able to make some of those decisions, given that conditions are changing every 24 hours as well. So that information will hopefully be coming to you this week. So anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Kelly, I just wanted to ask you, You'd said that if people wanted to call in with questions during the meeting, is that what you said?
We don't have the capability for the public to call in for the meeting, but they can send email to myself, or they can contact my department prior to the start of the meeting and submit questions or comments that they may have about an agenda item.
Okay, so there would be, a person would be identifying him or herself, and the same kind of procedure we go
Correct.
through here in person?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just to remind the public, these council agendas are posted prior, so you'll be able to see what the agendas are or learn about them in some of Tim's great reporting about what's going on. But get those questions to us, or get information to council to get your questions answered as well. So any other questions for the cause? Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't have a question, just a kind of a statement. I know that the Iowa Utilities Board, I think, extended out their time frame for payment of services. I know there's not a lot that, I think, I'm just thinking of the amount of rental properties that we have and the potential for if some of our restaurants and other places shut down, that we're going to have people that aren't going to be able to afford the places. So I guess I'm kind of calling on our landlords to be a little gracious in what they're doing for their renters during this time. I think we're all kind of in a unique situation, and if somebody's out of a job and doing some of this stuff, we need to make sure that we're kind of working as a community during this time.
Incredible point. And our waterworks right now is taking some of those same very steps as well. But I think with this situation, this is one where everyone can play a role, whether you're a landlord, whether you are city staff, whether you're a person in the community. Everybody can play a role, and that is to help mitigate some of the risks that we can see with this particular pandemic. So we just ask everybody to use the wisdom that's given from our Black Hawk County Health Department and other people that are experts in this area, and follow direction and take this situation very serious. So everybody can play a role in that and help. All right, thank you, Doctor. If you would take Mr. Alex.
You want me to come up?
No, did you have a question?
Can you get tested any clinic or Mercy One or anywhere, or do you have to go to a special place in Waterloo to get tested? Or can you even get tested here right now?
So right now, in talking with our healthcare providers, you can get tested at Mercy One and Unity Point for sure. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Doctor. All right, so we are still in oral presentations. Your opportunity to address the City Council on items that you want them to know about. So if you would please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and let us know.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street, Mayor and Council. I see in the paper there's a potential of hiring delays. To me, that just kicks the can down the road. The budget does not take effect until July 1st. It was indicated something like 4 months down the road. We're only like 3 months plus from that 4 months. Are these positions already in FYE 20? If they're not, then aren't they put in, and they aren't put in FY 21 budget, where will the money come from to fund them? If they're not already not been hired and the position was there. It was indicated also saving $460,000 because we kicked the can down the road. Huh? That doesn't make any sense. Using traffic camera money makes me wonder how well any decision made by the council can be trusted. $513,000 in savings there, but that was money that was, and you guys made the decision 2 years ago or whatever to be using that for tax relief. And every time I say something like that, they say, well, if we hadn't done that and taken that money, we'd have to raise your taxes. It doesn't help anything. Using cash reserves is not a good practice. I thought that those were for absolute emergencies like mass devastation, etc. And now, from what we're hearing, the coronavirus. Oops. Not wants. And I see a lot of wants in the stuff I read on the computer. We keep hearing about the state mandate rollback, not filled in. So when is this message going to be heeded? Act on it now. Last week, will more staff get streets repaired sooner, parks renovated sooner? You do realize that state money, if it's paid back in a rollback, is still my money. So they're going to raise my state taxes. It doesn't help me one bit until you guys start working smarter instead of harder and start, maybe it's time for a wage freeze. And next contract, add that clause plus less wage hikes. We, as retired people, don't get the wage hike they get. And when we do get a wage hike, it's usually the insurance that we have to pay goes up and offsets 2/3 or all of it. So I have some more, but I'll let that go. Thank you.
All right. Normally, I just let it roll off like water on a rainy day. But to say that, to make the assertion about smarter, these folks are working smarter every day, from the people that go out and respond to emergency situations, to our police department, to our street department. We have very smart and capable people here. And the reason you hear about some of the challenges we face, because they're true. And some things are outside of our control, some things are in our control. But I do take exception with the usage of the word smarter with regards to our city departments. Next, anyone else like to?
Yes, my name's Alex Martin, 511 Wildwood Road. Now, I am a low-level city employee at the library, and I would just like to take a very slight offense to Mr. Dreyer's comments. I mean, we have as a city very many employees that work their butts off, like the police and the fire and the council here, who quite frankly don't get paid very much and do a lot of work. And Nick over here. So, and the librarians I see 3 or 4 times a week. So to say we need to work smarter, not harder, I mean, that's just a ridiculous statement. And I just will yield my time now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on non-agenda related items? Going a second time.
Mr. Mayor.
Council.
I was going to make a motion to close oral presentation.
Second.
Motion's been made with the second to close oral presentations. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Where you at, Jerome?
Aye.
There he is.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. That's items 1A through 3. And that also would include the change in your travel being taken off there, 1A. And then also the bills payment, which is $2,511,987.72.
Second.
All right, that motion has been made with the second. Council. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Within that, we have Sonata Muhich, all right, would you please stand for us? Who is the new bookkeeper, administrative assistant at Waterloo Housing Authority. So we want to thank you so much for this partnership. We look forward to an incredible relationship with you in the city, and thank you for your service. All right. Number 2, please. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Foyce.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for a purchase of one 2020 wide area mower.
Second.
A motion has been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this particular item on the agenda? Going a second time?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close hearing.
Second.
A motion has been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to make a resolution confirming approval of specifications, bid documents, form of contract, etc.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Counsel? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids.
Adopt a resolution.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing to proceed.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, now I would like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, Madam Clerk.
All right, our estimate was $64,000. Our first bidder was Horse Distributing Incorporated of Chilton, Wisconsin. Their bid amount was $83,755. Second bidder was Kansas Golf and Turf of Lenexa, Kansas. Their bid amount was $83,124. And our final bidder was Turfworks of Johnston, Iowa. Their bid amount was $59,995.94.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a resolution awarding bid to Turfworks of Johnston, Iowa in the amount of $59,995.94.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Number 3, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication notice of public hearing on the 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center penthouse chiller replacement.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak to chiller replacement at the Sullivan Brothers? Going a second time?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
That motion's been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
He was in favor, I think. All right, sorry, I'll slow down.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plan specifications, form of contract, et cetera.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Questions, counsel? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
I'd
Morrissey?
like to make a motion adopting a resolution authorizing to proceed.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids and refer to building department for review.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Clerk?
All right, our estimate was $1,390,000. Our first bidder was Woodruff Construction LLC of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $1,149,700. Our second bidder was Cardinal Construction of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $1,114,000.
All right, thank you. We love air conditioning when it's warm out and heat when it's cold, so. Number 4, please. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file approved publication, notice of public hearing on the asbestos survey services for properties located at 1100 Sycamore Street, 105 East 10th Street, 300 Allen Street, 1527 East 4th Street, 2127 East 4th Street, which is St. Mary's Church and School buildings only, 1526 East 4th Street, 811 Williston Avenue, 179 Rebecca Lane, 1809 Blackhawk Street, 118 Shillham Avenue, 1004 Fulton Avenue, 817 Bluff Street, the Concert Hut only, 514 Johnson Street, 214 Cottage Street, 921 West 2nd Street, and 220 Hopkins Court.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You guys were in sync. Opposed? All right, the hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to comment about these, on this particular items on the agenda?
Yes, Mayor and Council, Forrest Stillwell, 1725 Huntington Road. 1100 grant is not here, on here. Was 1100 grant already done? Or
Right
has it
now,
been
you want to
dropped
give
from
us,
the list?
let's give a public update.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. 1100 grant is on the previously approved demolition contract, so they can take it down whenever they have the ability.
So the asbestos has not been removed?
I would have to check. I know they were trying to get in there,
Thank you.
the weather.
All right, thank you.
David Dryer, 3145 West 4th Street. What does that bring our total now to for the number of houses that we have that we either own or vacant lots, et cetera? Because we were over 200 before, and now it's another 17, and how many do we have total now that we control, are trying to sell, whatever?
I mean, who has that answer right now? I don't have that answer right now.
Okay, Noel, you have my address, or my email.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion, to close the hearing and receive and file oral comments.
Second.
Motion's been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, et cetera.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution authorizing to proceed.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file and instruct the city clerk to read bids and refer to Community Planning and Development Director for review.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right.
All right, our estimate was $10,980. We had one bidder. It was Hawkeye Environmental of Solon, Iowa. Their bid amount was $10,800.
All right, thank you. All right, could someone take 5, 6, and 7, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Number 5 is a resolution urging the Iowa State Legislature to ban the use of conversion therapy on minors. Number 6 is a resolution authorizing the city clerk to certify against certain parcels for unpaid lawn/weed mowing, snow removal, property cleanups, and hazardous trees. And then number 7 is a resolution approving amendments to the City of Waterloo Records Request Policy originally adopted by resolution number 2017-113.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made with the second. Questions on these 3 items, and just for clarification purposes, there is a bipartisan support in the Iowa State Legislature, and you would like a letter of support or resolution of support to what the state legislature is doing.
Yes.
correct? Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. Mr. Mayor, could I have Mr. Greider explain how this is relevant to the function of the city as city business? It seems to me that this, streets, buildings, et cetera, for the city of Waterloo, but we keep interjecting ourselves into what I feel is Des Moines state policy, and having I'm not opposed to this. It's just that we're supposed to conduct city business here, not interject ourselves into the state business. This seems to me like it should be something that's a matter for doctors, school officials, or through a petition from the citizens of Waterloo, not you guys making up my mind that I want to make this resolution. That's one of the things that, to me, is that elite attitude being proven.
A what?
That elite attitude.
Okay.
Because you know more what I want than I know, so the elite part comes out.
Oh, elite. I thought you
Elite.
said elite. First, I thought you said weak, and I was about to hit the floor, hit the sky. Then you said, then I thought it was leak. Then I thought it was elite, and I'm like, that's almost worse than elite, calling somebody elite attitude. So, I mean, where's it going to stop? Now you're calling folks elitist? Elitist attitudes?
I have before.
I mean, but you're not going to do it today.
Well,
I mean,
just
man,
did.
we're in the middle of
I
so
did-
many different
I
things
just
right now.
did,
Now
sir.
you're getting up and calling somebody an elitist.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it just doesn't stop. You've been
No.
patient, and you've been given respect, and you show none back to the council, to people up here. That's my problem.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, may I continue? It is my time.
No.
All right. Then I guess, that should be done by the schools because they deal with it more than the city does. And
Well, ask the schools.
if it's a elite situation, if you
Talking
feel
about
that
elite.
way,
There you
I
go
feel
about
this way.
elite again.
I have my right.
You have
to
your
voice-
right not to
voice-
disrespect
to voice my
people.
opinion.
You can voice your opinion, but you don't have the right to call folks out their name. How many people have called you out your name since you've been up here or gave an adjective describing what someone believes your motives are?
Not here, but
Okay.
on the street.
Then give the same thing here that you've been given.
Mr.
No
Mayor,
matter how much people have been frustrated,
Mr. Mayor,
people have always
Is this not my time?
characterized you. It is the citizens' times. It
That's
is
right, and I'm a
also, it is the
citizen.
citizens' time.
and respect is earned.
Correct. All right. Anyone else with comments?
Well, last I checked, the year is 2020, not like 1970 or something. And it is time that we as a city make history and show that we can be in the right direction and not backward thinking like some people in this audience want us to be in.
Now, Alex, listen. So one of the things that we always have to remember is that even when we may see examples of behaviors that we don't necessarily like, that we don't succumb to those behaviors
Well,
because it doesn't make
I
us.
apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Tell I was getting a bit frustrated.
But state your name and address for the record, buddy.
Alex Martin, 511 Wildwood Road, Apartment 1 in Waterloo, Iowa.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Oops, and we're going to have to get that hat off next time. That's twice we let it go. Okay.
John Sherman, John Sherman, 1715 Robin Road. Back to, I guess we'll go to number 5. It's city business. This is a city hall. I stated that last week. If we want to do some good with this Iowa legislature, why don't we go after abortion? Why don't we go after pedophiles? We got a list that goes from here to the end of this building one at a time. We can't take every issue on that comes up that somebody decides they want to talk about. Our influence on the state legislature is not very much. I understand where he's coming from. I appreciate that. But it's not city business, and that's what this is. This is a city council. And it should be maintained as such. We can't take every issue on. You know, it just can't be done. We can't afford it. We don't have the money. Listen to a presentation this afternoon, $50,000. You know, how much hours did everybody sit and listen to this for 2 or 3 times through this deal? Everybody in here draws money, and I realize most of it's salaries. But that's a lot of cash, and it's a lot of wasted time because we can't do anything. We cannot pass that law and change anything. Thank you, sir.
All right. And Mr. Sherbine, I want to thank you for, you disagree, but you kept it focused on what you believe the issue is, and that's what we need to do. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl Christensen, 1702 Mitchell. This is in regard to number 5. And I too believe that the city is not to be involved in the situation with the state. It should come from the state first. It should be a parent decision, a teacher decision, anybody else's decision, but not the city council.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions on 5, 6, and 7? Mr. Morrissey.
It's our time?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I don't know if I may yield to Jonathan, and Jonathan wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I did have just a couple of remarks, Mr. Mayor. So, a couple of things. It's the first time I've ever been called an elitist, having worked my way through college and bought my own home with the money that I made, doing the extraordinarily lucrative career of being a public school teacher. So, thanks for that. I do teach government, so I know a thing or two about the levels of government. So let's get started. I've received a fair amount of emails about this issue, and fundamentally the misunderstanding seems to be that I'm outlawing this practice. I'm not. The state has already acted. I'm just voicing support. And in a representative democratic republic in which we live, you elected all 7 of us to represent your opinion. And be that as it may, if you don't like that, we have regularly scheduled elections, and such is life. But fundamentally, there are 2 types of politics in this world. There's the politics of subtraction, and there's the politics of addition. And I think it's important that we understand these political realities when dealing with this issue, and really anything that comes before this board, because this is a political organization. And the best way to teach this idea is to show it. And so these are some messages from the politics of subtraction that I have received this week. I am going to preface this by saying that for these emails, I have changed some of the language because it would not be appropriate in the setting to read aloud. So I just want that to be noted for the record. Why don't you and your broken little children go back to wherever you're from? We don't need no gay lover on the city council. You're a disgrace. The second, you're not a real Christian. You will be going to hell. I will be laughing with God while you spend an eternity in flames. And the third one, we shouldn't support monster children or you. You're like Dr. Frankenstein, and we don't need more monsters in the world. That is extremely painful for me to read because I have sat with dozens of children who trusted their parents, their guardians, their pastors, their aunts and uncles, their grandparents, their state-provided guardians, who have told them that they are fundamentally broken. And I've spent a lot of the time this week holding my 2-year-old daughter and telling her that she's perfect just the way she is because she is a person with dignity and she deserves respect, however she turns out in the end. And so does every one of those dozens of children that I've held crying because the people that are supposed to love them the most don't, because they see them as fundamentally flawed for a variety of reasons. So I have had to listen to this sort of verbal abuse rained on me, and that's fine because I was elected to this position and I understand that it takes a tough skin to do this. But what I find unconscionable is that we're talking about children. We're talking about young men and women, human beings, and we're calling them monsters. And that is unacceptable. And it is the purview of this body, just like any government body, to take care of the safety and the welfare of all of the people in our jurisdiction, which for us is the city of Waterloo. That is Government 101. That's how this is up here on this agenda. All too often in the politics of subtraction, it's only about what group has power. The other, the stranger, the person who's different from us is not really a person. They are a caricature that can be cut down and denigrated because they're not real. It's a small type of politics that favors those with power and privilege, and it builds iniquities and disparities and makes them realities for too many. So what are we talking about tonight? I'm being told that we're spending a massive allotment of time. We've talked about this last week and we're talking about this now. I never asked Mr. Anderson or anyone else who does the very important job of building our streets, and Mr. Knutson, to do anything with this. So their time has not been used except for being at this meeting, which they would already be at. I have been lambasted. I have had snide comments made online about me from some of the people up on this dais, and that's fine. But that is the politics of the small. That is the politics of subtraction that leaves some out because they are different. What this resolution is asking is for the state to take the step that they're already on the path to doing, to ban a form of abusive therapy that leads to higher depression rates and suicide rates among minors. That's what children are being labeled as monsters for in my emails. For having the desire to be treated like any and every one of us deserve, like a human being with dignity and respect and worth. Now, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the politics of addition. I believe, and I very likely will always believe, in doing as much good for as many people as often as I can. That is how I was raised by my parents. That was how I was raised in the personal faith that I have. Those are the beliefs that I try to instill every day in my daughter. And what does the politics of addition look like? I have some emails for that. Mr. G, thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for knowing that I'm a person. Too often government ignores me because of my age, my orientation, my identity. Thank you for seeing me and doing something. This is from a parent. We have responsibility to do right by our kids. And finally, this is the right side of history. I was taught to love all and forgive all. And I love and forgive all of those who have sent those emails to me, who have compared me even to Dr. Frankenstein, because they are people. You are all people, and you all deserve to be treated better. And I firmly believe that we do better when we all do better. And taking care of kids, children, is most assuredly under the purview of this governing body. So now some of you don't want the ooey-gooey, lovey-feely, touchy-feely human being stuff that I'm going to go to. So let's get to the hard numbers, because I'm told that I'm wasting money. So here are the dollars and cents. It's estimated by the Williams Institute of the UCLA Law School that nearly 20,000 minors in states without conversion therapy bans will be subjected to this therapy in 2020. Now, I did some math. Adjusting for population, that's 400 children in the state of Iowa, which adjusting for our population puts us at about 40 to 50. So, according to the Human Rights Campaign, what does that mean? That means that those children will experience an 8-fold increase in suicide attempts, which will require emergency services. It will require law enforcement personnel due to the lack of mental health services we have in this state, and it will require hospitalization, most assuredly. All of these things have a cost to our community. These children are 3 times more likely to turn to drugs and 3 times more likely to contract HIV/AIDS, all of which also have a community cost to all of us. We are members of a society, and we can subtract people from what we believe to be our purview, subtract people from our society, or we can add them. We can make them welcome. We can treat them like the human beings that they are and do better by them. That's the politics I will always have. It's the politics that I will continue to invest in this body as long as I am serving on it, and it's what we need to do. And I think it's extraordinarily disingenuous to make the argument that we should not intervene in cases between an adult and a child. We do already in other cases of physical abuse or abandonment or other things like that. So this is very clearly something that we should tell the state that they should step in. I'm not asking for us to spend money. I'm asking for us to tell the state that we have their back. This is the right thing to do, and I hope my colleagues will join me in voting in the affirmative on this resolution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Klein.
I applaud my colleague for expressing what he believes and for not being afraid to be emotional about it, because if you feel that strongly, then your emotions are involved. But I believe that up here on this dais, we should separate emotions from fact. And I believe that this provision, even though it doesn't accomplish anything, it's just a suggestion to the state, is really not something that the city council should be involved in, because it brings a political issue into what is supposed to be a non-political body. And it's tragic about this. I mean, I think my family reflects society just about as much as any family can. We have people of multicultures in my family. We have people of different leanings. You know, we have straight people, we have gay people, we have tall people, we have short people, we have the whole gamut. And what binds us together is love and respect. And it is not our place up here to diminish in any way the bond and the relationship between a child and its parent. To assume that parents have evil intentions to their children is too broad-based for me. It's just way too broad-based. And this doesn't delineate what kind of therapy can be offered or outlawed, which is way too broad-based once again. When a child comes to the parent or a teacher or someone and wants to talk to them about some confusions they have, I think it's appropriate for that person to either engage in that conversation or to refer to a person who is skilled in that. And that's way beyond my pay grade. I cannot support this. I support gay rights, I support civil rights, but I cannot support this particular ordinance.
All right, Mr. Morrissey.
Resolution.
Sorry, Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Mayor, I will join with Jonathan, and I'm very happy to join with Jonathan in support of resolution number 5. By the way, before I finish, Mr. Mayor, I want to make known that number 7, I just appreciate if Kelly could explain that. But before that, I just wanted to say, first of all, my colleague across the table here from me, anybody to say that this doesn't accomplish anything, yes, it accomplishes something. It tells the legislature that the city of Waterloo, city council elected officials are either in favor of something or they're opposed to something. And for somebody to say that we're not a political body, that's just wrong, Mr. Mayor. Everything we do up here is political. We're nonpartisan. That's how we were elected, as nonpartisan. We don't have a party. We're not to have a party attached to us. Another thing is the belief that this is somehow a issue that should be reserved to the state. We make up part of the state. The opposite is the problem. What has happened, rather than the city asking the state to do something and taking over and doing something that the state should be doing, look at what the state, this group that's got control of the legislature for the last 4 or 5 years, look what they've done to our municipalities. They have passed time after time preemption bills that keep the cities, the municipalities, from taking the steps that they feel are in the best interest of the people within those municipalities. That's dead wrong. That violates the whole concept of municipal home rule. This is a reverse of that. This is the city saying to the state, we want to see this happen, and I hope that what you said is correct, that there's a bipartisan effort to see that this passes. I know it's not going anywhere this session, I guess. But we do have an influence on what the state does. All you got to do is look at what the state has done when it comes down to municipalities and local governments passing minimum wage ordinances, what they've done and what they're trying to do with our Fair Chance initiative. Yes, we do have an influence on what the state does, and they're not doing that in a vacuum. They're hearing what we say. And finally, for those people that believe in states' rights, there's somewhat of an analogy that it can be made here between the cities and the state. So with that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I would ask Kelly, number 7.
Kelly, number 7, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Yes. Just sitting here listening and don't have a lot to say other than the fact that for me, this resolution is something that as a council person, I feel like I am doing what I'm supposed to do as a council person representing individuals in our community. And I support this 1,000%, Councilman Greider, just so you know. So I'm ready to make the vote if there's no one else, Mayor.
1,000%? That's more than
1,000%.
That's more than 100. You get 10 votes for that. All right. So,
Mayor?
yeah,
Mr. Mayor?
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just very, very briefly want to just congratulate Mr. Greider, thank him for his courage, and apologize for any hurt and pain that those inexcusable comments might have made for him or his family. I'm very proud to be serving with Mr. Greider and thank him for the courage that he's exhibited.
At first, I thought he ended up accidentally getting my emails. Kelly.
So item number 7 is a cluster of amendments to the City of Waterloo records request policy. 2 of the largest changes that we're recommending. Number 1 is to designate the fire department as the custodian of their own records. Many of their records are tied in with investigative reports, or they're releasing ambulance information out to people who are requesting these kind of documents. Generally speaking, the public goes directly to the fire department in the first place to get copies of these records. A lot of these records are governed by HIPAA regulations that, frankly, I'm not up on and I don't want to be up on. So we're designating that over to the fire department. And then designating personnel information as specifically as a new non-routine records request. We currently have any request for a document that takes more than 15 minutes to fulfill is designated as a non-routine request. We explicitly designate emails as that currently, so we want to just add personnel records. Number 1, due to the sensitive nature of that information, it takes a lot of time to go through and comb through make sure that we're releasing the correct information, that confidential information isn't going out the door. And a lot of times with the way this information is stored, it's stored in computer software, so we have to pull reports to extract the information, and then we have to go back through and do a lot of redacting, or we have to create a new document. So that's the crux of the changes, and then also adding in flash drives as a medium that we will transmit records through.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
No on 5, yes on 6 and 7.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin? Mrs. Jewin?
Mr. Jewin, take your phone off mute.
Sorry, yes.
And Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 8, 9, and 10, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Klein.
Number 8 is a resolution approving an intergovernmental transfer of public funds agreement with the Iowa Department of Human Services and authorizing the mayor to execute said documents. Number 9 is a resolution approving a request by the city of Waterloo to dedicate 1 50-foot wide and 2 30-foot wide permanent sanitary sewer easements located south of 4550 Hess Road to properly align easements with location of the sewer. And number 10 is a resolution approving supplemental agreement number 4 to a professional services agreement originally executed November 7th, 2016 with AECom Technical Services, Inc. of Waterloo, Iowa, in an amount not to exceed $1,549,000 in conjunction with the fiscal year 2020 University Avenue Reconstruction Phase 3, Evergreen Avenue to US 63, contract number 971, and authorizing the mayor to execute said document.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Discussion about these 3 items.
Mr. Mayor,
All right, Mr. Bozen.
I'm sorry. Could we get an update on phase 1, 2, and 3 on University Avenue, when these phases were supposed to be completed? Or do we have all 3 phases under construction at the same time?
Mr. Knutson, or so while Michelle is explaining this, I need to take a quick bathroom break. So
Motion to recess for 5 minutes?
We don't have to. I think she's going to be up here till I get done.
Well, I'd like to, too. I'm glad you brought it up first, though.
Mayor, just don't forget.
Oh, we're supposed to be out here.
Motion to take a 3-minute recess?
3-minute recess. Motion been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Phase 1 is going to be completed by June, weather dependent again with the rain. And then for Phase 2, Phase 1 has begun. So we've got lane closures going up, and that's basically so the contractor can complete the median work that needs to be done. And then for Phase 2, we anticipate starting next week and shifting traffic head to head. It may be later in the week with the rain, but we'll see. And then we've got Phase 3, and Phase 2's construction completion should be this year, again, weather dependent. Phase 3's construction's phased for 2-year construction. What you're gonna see first is the closure of Fletcher all the way to 63, and then the following year will be the area from about Knoll all the way to just shy of Amesboro for completion, along with the Fletcher Bridge.
You said Knoll?
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't.
So.
No. All right.
Could you tell me when they were originally supposed to be completed?
Yeah, so Phase 1 was originally anticipated to be completed last year. However, with the unusually high rainfall amounts that we had, it was the rainiest year on record. The contractor just couldn't complete their work due to the impacts that the weather had on their schedule.
And Phase 2?
Phase 2 is always supposed to be completed this year. It's a 2-year project. Same thing with Phase 3.
Thank you.
So let me ask, to add to Mr. Bozen's point, how long was the entire thing the entire university supposed to take?
I think we're on schedule. It's just
Right.
Phase 1's fallen a little bit behind due to the weather impacts.
Okay.
Yep.
So just with the individual parts, but same time frame as we originally.
Yes, so we had originally anticipated letting it in 3 schedules. We've had that planned for quite some time. And so we've actually knew that Phase 2 and 3 were always going to be 2-year, and 1 were all 2-year projects. It's just taking a little bit longer for Phase 1 due to the weather.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Could someone take 11 and 12, please?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes, sir. All right. Number 11 is a resolution approving award of contract to Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, Iowa, in the amount of $14,387,651.08, and approving the contract bonds and certificate of insurance for the fiscal year 2020 University Avenue Reconstruction Phase 3, contract number 971, and authorizing mayor and city clerk to execute said documents. And 12 is a resolution approving a detour agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation for the initiated detour of primary highways onto local roads in conjunction with the reconstruction of U.S. Highway 218 from the U.S. 218 northbound on-ramp at the Airport Boulevard interchange to Main Line, and authorizing the mayor to execute said document.
Second.
All right, that motion has been made with multiple seconds. Questions about these two items, 11 and 12?
Mr. Mayor, can we just have Jamie tell us a little bit about number 12?
Oh, we got one question.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. I was taking my break when number 10 came up, and I think I missed the oral or the questions on it. So 11 is available for me. My question is, how much is this total project going to cost up to including Phase 3? How much do we expect to have in it? And I know there's hidden things underground, et cetera. I just wonder how much we're going to have adding this last phase to it.
For the total university, projected what, 38, maybe 38 million?
Okay, and how much do we have in it? Including the 14 that's coming up.
That includes Jamie Knutson, city engineer. That 38 million includes this 14 million currently that is before you or before council.
Okay, and the 1.5 again to AECom.
Yes, all that is included in that 38 million.
All right, good. And that's what it was proposed to be.
Yes.
You guys are doing good.
Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl Christensen, 1702 Mitchell. Number 10, and I don't believe that question was called for us to comment on it, by the way.
I did ask if there were,
Okay, I missed
asked
it
for any
then.
comments. So it's about University Avenue in general, so if you want to ask a question,
I'm
it
questioning-
can relate to
I'm
number
questioning
11.
University and Fletcher Avenue with regard to the roundabout that's going in.
Mhm.
How many comments have you had, pro and con on that? What is the cost, and why are we putting a roundabout in at that corner? And how many businesses are going to be put out of commission because of the roundabout?
Right. So good questions. And one of the reasons why we were asked to coordinate with our sister city on one of them, and we didn't do it because businesses would be impacted. So we didn't do it. But how many businesses are impacted by the roundabout on
0.
Fletcher? And what is the cost of all of this?
I defer to Michelle as far as the cost, but there are no impacts to the businesses. We don't have to buy any property from the businesses.
And then why a roundabout at this particular location?
Well, in this particular location, it basically, the traffic study determined that this was the one that made sense. Anybody that sat at the signals at University and Fletcher and waited for them forever, this one just made sense. The traffic volumes are such that it, again, made sense in this location. We didn't have to buy property. So that was one of the other items. At other locations, we would have had to have purchased property or bought out businesses. And this one, we did not have to.
What difference is there in traffic-wise, University and Amesboro versus Fletcher and Amesboro?
Now, I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, but
Fletcher and University.
Amesboro has a lot more traffic, I can tell you that. Michelle maybe
Ms.
can.
Sweeney up here to answer that question. Please come forward, ma'am.
How much is that going to cost?
All right, we got your questions, and let's let her answer them now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
No.
So the cost of a roundabout is actually pretty much a wash when it comes down to the cost of a traffic signal versus the cost of a roundabout. They're about $200,000 in additional paving. The cost of a roundabout substantially goes up when you have to acquire right-of-way. Here, we did not have to acquire right-of-way. It was all within the existing right-of-way, and so therefore we didn't even need to get temporary easements from the adjacent properties in order to construct that. And then as far as the other question was...
Why,
Oh, the traffic volumes.
Right.
The Amesboro intersection actually did not fit well with a roundabout due to the fact that there would have required 3 lanes in order to get the volumes of left turning traffic going from northbound Amesboro going on to westbound University. And so having that turning volume there actually was very restrictive.
All right, thank you. Any other questions about 11 or 12? Council,
Had a question on
Mr.
12.
Bozen.
And this would probably be for Jamie, because when I was reading this number 12 in our packet, and I didn't realize that, I was going to email you until I read the packet, that the DOT photographs the road and the condition of the road, and then after the detour is over, is supposed to put it back.
Yes.
And that, so can I ask you, based on that information, and I know it's on number 12, because when Highway 20 was detoured and all that traffic went up Shawless, those big trucks destroyed Shawless. Did the DOT have to come back and make those repairs? I mean, they really, from Highway 21 to the casino, Shawless just got beat.
The stretch, Jamie Knudsen, city engineer, the stretch between Highway 21 and Hammond was not in real good shape to begin with, and the city received we received gas tax funding as part of the detour for Highway 20, and we received those funds. That is scheduled for another year out for overlay in 21. The stretch of Shawless between Hess Road and 218, that one was in much worse shape prior to, but we're working on replacing that with RISE grant, with the new theme park and everything else out there. So that'll be replaced in the next 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions? Madam Clerk?
Sorry. Just like an overview of what this project is going to entail, timeline and all of that, please.
Basically, the DOT is going to reconstruct Highway 218 from the airport interchange going west towards Cedar Falls. So the on-ramps from Airport Boulevard onto 218 going west will be closed, so they're going to detour traffic up Airport Boulevard to Airline Highway and up Leversey Road, and run them around that way. This agreement is just for the city council to approve. There'll be a cash payment based on the road use tax that'll come back to the city after the fact to help with any repairs that may be necessary, although that piece of Broadway I'm looking at scheduling that in the next 4 or 5 years to be overlaid as well, so.
Yeah.
And that's this summer then, Jimmy?
Yeah, that'll be this summer. Right now, they are looking to be starting from about April 6th, and they're hoping to be done the end of May.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I forgot to mention, what an incredible project for that corridor. So something that this entire city council, this entire city should be absolutely proud of. So council, thank you so much for your support, and ACOM, thank you for your vision, and city staff as well. 13 and 14, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to adopt a resolution approving professional services agreement with Robinson Engineering Company of Independence, Iowa, and the amount not to exceed $13,900 in conjunction with the Delane Creek Watershed Assessment, and authorizing the mayor to execute said document. And number 14, to adopt a resolution authorizing the exception to the City of Waterloo's purchasing procedure policy to approve the purchase of one 2020 Ford Super Duty F-350 SRW F3B XL four-wheel drive, regular cab with 8-foot box, 142-inch wheelbase for Waterloo Fire Rescue from National Auto Fleet Group of Watsonville, California.
That motion has been made with the second. Questions about these items?
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. This is on number 14. First question is, why are we going clear to California to get a truck? Is it going to be delivered free? And was it that much cheaper? And then what is going to be the use of this vehicle?
All right, Mr. Chief Treelor, could you,
Pat Treeler, Fire Chief. This truck's going to be used to replace our old brush truck. It's replacing a 1993 pickup. So we'll use the current insert that's in that truck, and we'll put it into the new truck. We've had significant mechanical issues with the 1993. I can't answer if the truck's coming from California. I will say that Mr. Bennett used a buying consortium called Sourcewell to purchase the vehicle, and save the city over $8,000 by using that.
all right, council, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Number 15,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion approving amended budget activity narrative description for Fund 010-02-8100 City Council as follows. The City Council is a legislative branch of the City of Waterloo form of government. Responsibilities include but are not limited to formulating, enacting, and voting on public policy and budgets which provide guidance and direction to the city administration in responding to the needs, improvements, and plans of and on behalf of the community. Furthermore, to develop and have oversight on implementation of an action plan or plans to accomplish enacted public policy and budgets through motions, resolutions, and ordinances.
Second.
All right, motion's been made with the second. Questions about this? Do you have a question? Did this go through a work session?
We had discussed it during budget, Mr. Mayor.
So what does develop and have oversight on implementation of action plans mean?
Exactly that. We develop, we're part of that. We're the legislative branch of our form of government, the City of Waterloo.
No, I mean, just like, really, what does it mean? Like, I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
That's part of our responsibility in the jobs that we take on.
To create
if we
action
get elected.
plans?
Well, we're part of that, yes. Definitely part of it.
Because it would have been nice to go through
work session like we've been trying to do.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add that this is rewording what's already there. It's just making it stronger as far as making sure that there's an identified separation in our form of government with co-equal branches of that government.
So does this have anything, when you say oversight or implementation of action plan, does this have to do with management of daily staff operations?
No, it's not, no. That's why that wording was changed to that, as a matter of fact, because of that question. And it led to the change of that. Furthermore, to develop and have oversight. In other words, we look at what's going on, and if we have some concerns, we bring it to the attention of you or whoever, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not for this or against this. It just alarms me when we amend something like that without having a chance to have it thoroughly explained at a work session and thoroughly discussed with ancillary papers of proof. I just would like to see this more in depth before we get around to voting on it. Is there a chance we could postpone this and have a work session on this? Could we do
Not
that?
making that, no, I don't see the point, period.
Well, it just seems
We
so
discussed it in the
fast.
budget session, work session. And you are going to submit your plan, if you remember right,
It just seems
Councilwoman Coyne.
abrupt with.
But where's yours?
Well, I think the question comes back ultimately that it was asked if this could go to a work session, and you're saying, no, you won't support that. But the reason I just asked, because, yeah, maybe it was, but I just don't remember. I know on the actual statement papers, I think it was like 2 sentences: to formulate and enact public policy to provide guidance and direction to the city administration in response to the needs of the community, to develop and implement an action plan to accomplish enacted policy. And this one is, city council is a legislative branch, which I remember having that conversation. Responsibilities include, but are limited to, formulating, enacting, and voting on public policy and budgets to provide guidance, direct city. So to read it, it's pretty much the same thing, but spelled out. Clerk.
I guess I would say the language that's proposed, this is information that's listed on a budget activity narrative, and it describes the department activity and objectives that the funds that are allocated underneath the city council's budget is to be used for and what it's supposed to be applied to. Generally speaking, the money that's in your budget currently is used to pay for council travel or your iPads, things of that nature, to help support legislating activities. This does not make any sort of change to city code or anything like that, so I really don't want council to have that sort of misconception if you do adopt what's proposed here. I guess as far as the wording and how it's proposed,
Mr. Mayor, can we
I don't know, what do
get
you want me
Mr.
to
Peterson
say?
to weigh in on this?
It's the ability to further define and make that separation of the governmental rules and put. Now, can you go back to that screen you just had really quickly?
Yep.
And then scroll up just top of this.
Yep, that's the top.
You want to ask Mr. Peterson a question?
Words matter, and even the way that they're configured, they matter in the legal sense. So I would like our attorney to weigh in on this.
Martin Peterson, Legal Department. This is a motion, not a resolution or an ordinance, and it is adding language to a document that is part of the budget planning process. And so I would view the language as sort of legislative intent or sort of an explanation of the process. I think Mr. Morrissey's probably just trying to explain what he perceives to be the role of the council in the budget process. But it's in the form of a motion attached to a document that isn't necessarily part of the budget, but is part of the process of budgeting. That's how I would view this.
All right. So,
Mr. Mayor, once again, if I may, when the city council's budget came up the same day that yours was up, we had a discussion about this, and I at that time had said what I would like it to be, which was very similar to what is in front of you right here. And the council person across from me had said that she was going to submit something. She never did.
I thought we'd
So
have a
mine
work
is,
session.
excuse me?
Well, if you're going to accuse me,
hold on.
I'm
Wait
just
till he's
repeating
done.
the
Wait till he's
facts.
done. Mr. Morris, your floor.
Wow, unbelievable. So I am just repeating what had happened that day, and I am bringing this forward merely as an explanation for something that is on a form that we use when we're having budget discussions in work sessions. It merely explains in a little more detail what the role of a city council person is in the budgetary process, and overall it explains what we do. We've had this discussion ever since I've been on city council, and this is just a furtherance of that, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Klein.
this is just so out of line. I thought, giving true respect to my colleagues, this should come through a work session, not an abrupt surprise where we don't have an opportunity with a full council present. I mean, on the phone is difficult. I just would have a whole lot more respect for the process to have a work session, to talk it over, to do the proper comparisons, get the proper opinions, and then make a decision. Maybe this is the right one. Maybe it isn't. But it seems to me it's subvertive. It seems to me it's, slipped in there at the end, so no one's going to look.
Right. Yeah, let's go ahead and vote.
It's a motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Yes, I want to oppose that.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.